morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are here this morning outside of the Johns Hopkins Metro Station to discuss the future of our shared transportation that our residents depend on. I am here today with Senator Cory McCray from the 45th District, my senator, sponsor of the Senate version of the bill, Delegate Brooke Learman from the 46th District, sponsor on the House side, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski Jr., Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, Howard County Executive Calvert Ball, Alicia Wilson, Johns Hopkins University and Health System, Mike Millen from ATU Local 1300, and Ern Tomashko from Trade Point Atlantic. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Senator McCray for remarks. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to say I'm humbled. I'm honored to be joined by our leaders across the Baltimore region. I'm joined by my mayor, Brandon Scott, joined by County Executive John Olszewski, joined by County Executive Howard Calvin Ball, joined by Anne Arundel County Stuart Pittman, and also joined by my colleague from the House of Delegates, Brooke Learman. I'm proud to be joined by them because these are our leaders, and I'm glad to see us under a unified effort in reference to our public transit for the Mass Transit Administration. We've seen where our neighbors, I want to say our seniors, who depend on our Mass Transit Administration to get their prescription drugs. We've seen where our constituents depend on our Mass Transit Administration to get their food. We've seen where our workers depend on our Mass Transit Administration to get to work. And there could never be a time such as this at this moment where we see a $2 billion deficit without capital infrastructure at this moment and it not happening. These are the same leaders that I'm standing next to when they saw our operating dollars under attack. They came under a unified effort to make sure that collectively our constituents had what they needed at this moment. So I'm proud, as stated, to be the sponsor in the Senate chamber, but also to have that cross-file in the House chamber with Delegate Brooke Learman to make sure that the Transit Safety Investment Act, Senate Bill 199, gets across that finish line. And I'm glad that our employers such as Johns Hopkins University, our workers such as ATU Local 1300, know the importance of making sure that this gets across the finish line for our constituents. I'd just like to say once again, thank you for your leadership in reference to the Baltimore region and getting across that finish line. Thank you again.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so honored to be here with so many great leaders from around the state of Maryland, including our transit leaders, including our important employers, and our elected leaders. We're here today because too many people are standing in the cold this morning, waiting for a bus that isn't coming. We're here because too many kids are at home in the evenings, waiting for their parents to get home, but they're stuck on the light rail that isn't moving. We're here because essential workers, like those who work at Hopkins and all over the state, rely on public transit, and we rely on those essential workers, but they cannot get to work if the bus or the train doesn't show up. If we want employers like Hopkins, like Trade Point Atlantic, like others, to have employees who show up regularly and on time, we have to create a transit system that is built for everyone. Folks, in infrastructure, like in life, you get what you pay for. And for the past 6 years, this administration has paid next to nothing to keep up our MTA assets. That's why we have a system where the buses break down, the light rail breaks down, our transit breaks down, more than any other system of comparable size in the United States. If we want to build an economy that works, if we want to build a state that's connected, where folks can say, reach our state capital on public transit, we have to pay for it. We have to invest in public transit. So I'm so proud to be standing here with my cross-file, with the leader in the Senate, Senator Cory McCray, to be working this year on the Transit Safety and Investment Act. It's my hope that this is the year that we decide enough is enough and finally take the necessary step to invest in our crumbling public transit system, rather than leaving it to future administrations and future generations to foot the bill. It's time to fund MTA now. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Learman, for always being a champion for public transit here in Maryland and across Baltimore. Thank you both for being champions for a transportation system that works better, not just for our city, but for the entire region. I also want to thank my fellow executives for standing up for transit funding and doing it together. As Senator McCray said, when our bus system was facing cuts and reduced service, we stood together in an effort that ultimately got that decision reversed. Today, we stand together for a system that is equitably funded and that works better for our residents. Historically, our transit system has been underinvested in. Anyone who has tried the system and trying going from point A to point B knows how hard it is. I remember those long nights when it was faster for me to catch the bus downtown and catch the subway back uptown to go home from Maryville to Park Heights, and getting home at 8:30 and 9 o'clock at night from high school, having to get up at 5:30 in the morning to be at school on time. This system does not work. It has to be invested in. That underinvestment has a major impact on Baltimore City, where our residents rely on this system to get around. Here in Baltimore, almost a third of households do not have access to a vehicle. That number is even higher in concentrations in historically red-hot neighborhoods. Passing the Maryland Transit Safety and Investment Act would ensure increased operating and capital support for the MTA to help services and ensure funding in the Baltimore metro region. Supporting this legislation is one big way we can support our essential workers during this public health emergency and beyond. This is a system that our business community relies on. It's a system our frontline workers depend on, our hospital cleaning staff, our doctors, and our nurses. A functioning system is even more critical as we work to navigate this unprecedented pandemic. And it's a system that another group of frontline workers, our transit workers, who some are standing with us today, literally keep moving. Our region and our state needs a transit system that is better connected, that helps more people safely and reliably get to their jobs or wherever they need to go. But we will only have a better system with a well-funded system. Making the needed investments to build a transportation system that is more responsive and reliable is the key to a safer, stronger, more vibrant Baltimore City and region. And I'd like to now turn it over to my friend and my partner, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski Jr.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning. It is a pleasure indeed to be with you here today. I want to first thank Senator McCray and Delegate Learman for their vision on this critical issue. As we prepare for the beginning of a legislative session, the likes of which we've never seen before, we're lucky to have advocates like you fighting for us in Annapolis. I also want to thank you, Mayor Scott, County Executive Ball, County Executive Pittman, my friends. Thank you for standing together on behalf of all of our residents. And thanks also to Alicia Wilson from Hopkins, Mike McMillian from ATU, and all of your members here today, and Aaron Tamarchio from Trade Point Atlantic for recognizing the importance of this critical issue. As the mayor mentioned, we all came together earlier to prevent action that moved this region in the wrong direction, fighting to prevent the state's latest attempts to cut MTA service and balance balance their budget on the backs of those who are most vulnerable. We did that because we know that the Baltimore region has faced historic underinvestment in aging infrastructure, which has led to inadequate service, a reality that was reinforced after we already saw Governor Hogan's short-sighted decision to kill the Red Line. With the swing of a pen and without much hesitation, we lost decades of planning, forfeited hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding, and set our residents back a generation. And without any real alternative in its place, today, the Baltimore region remains one of the most congested in the country. And these moments remind us that we must do whatever we can to fight for the funding our region deserves, and not just prevent unjust cuts to an already underfunded system. It's time to be proactive. It's time to build. It's time to empower our residents. As I've said many times, and as we all recognize, our residents don't live their lives within the confines of a border. So many of our residents rely on public transportation to get to work, medical care, or access other essential services throughout the entire metro Baltimore area. In so many ways, access to efficient, reliable transit is fundamental to improving our quality of life. And if we're serious about finding a solution, we have to do more. And so I want to thank again Delegate Learman, Senator McCray for stepping forward to find a way forward, to do more ahead. The Transit Reinvestment Act will ensure the state dedicates its fair share to both operational and capital needs for the MTA. It's an issue of equity, it's an issue of justice, and it will empower our friends at the MTA and the ATU to provide better quality and service for our residents. Moving forward, we will continue to fight and reverse the generations of underinvestment in the Baltimore region. Together, we will move beyond jurisdictional boundaries to create a truly interconnected, multimodal transportation system to support all of our generations, all of our citizens for generations to come. And with that, I want to turn things over to my partner from Anne Arundel, County Executive Stuart Pittman.
Thank you, County Executive, and thank you, Mayor Scott, for your leadership, and thank you for setting the priorities in the Maryland General Assembly, Delegate Learman and Senator McCray. It's great to be here with my fellow county executives in the region. You know, transit is the key for economic development, economic justice, and environmental progress. So you might be wondering why the county executive from down in Anne Arundel County is up here in Baltimore City advocating for transit. Well, we don't have much of it in my county, but we want to change that. The residents of Anne Arundel County recognize that sprawl development has cost us all, and people now support the basic concepts of transit-oriented development. But you can't do transit-oriented development without transit. So this system is essential for this whole region to get cars off the road and to get people to work. And unfortunately, the current administration, this current governor, seems to be particularly obsessed with getting cars across the Bay Bridge. And rather than putting $2.9 billion into the Red Line for Baltimore, putting potentially an estimated $6 or $7 billion into a third span to get across the Bay Bridge to encourage sprawl development over there and destroy the farms on the eastern shore. So it's absolutely essential that we pass this legislation so that this governor and future governors will have to invest in transit for the Baltimore region. I'm going to turn it over to my fellow county executive from Howard County, Calvin Ball.
Thank you, County Executive Pittman. What a beautiful day to be in our beloved Baltimore after a wonderful Ravens win with transportation and connection champions like Senator McCray, Delegate Learman, Mayor Scott, and my fellow county executives. I'm pleased to be here to express my support for the Transit Safety and Investment Act, Senate Bill 199, House Bill 114, a bill that will help equalize the playing field for transportation system in our Baltimore region. In Howard County, we have invested in infrastructure to add resources, improve communities, and increase accessibility through a truly multimodal transportation system that better connects Howard County to the Baltimore region. We recognize that alleviating traffic is important to our quality of life and is vital to protecting our environment by reducing the number of cars on the road. Howard County residents have shared interest in solving our transportation problems in the Baltimore region. Nearly 60% of our residents commute in and out of Howard County each and every day. And despite our location between two major metropolitan areas, the Mark-Camden line is the only all-day, long-distance transit service in Howard County. We need both a well-run and adequately funded system if we want to improve the quality of life and opportunities for all residents and businesses. Howard County is appreciative of the regional transportation plan adopted last year. However, that is merely a first step toward improving our transit system. The existing system must be adequately funded and maintained. Statewide transit funding priorities need to focus on the state of good repair needs in both the Baltimore and Washington regions as we work to beat COVID-19 and plan for economic recovery and revitalization. No matter where we are in our region, the trips to downtown need to be safe and accessible and reliable before we have a chance at meaningful expansion. And we look forward to increased regional collaboration on our mutual transit needs to ensure reliable and accessible infrastructure for all of our residents. It's my honor now to turn it over to Alicia Wilson, a transit and transportation as well as health and wellness partner for Baltimore and our region.
Good morning. On behalf of Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health System, it is our pleasure to express our appreciation to Senator McCray, Delegate Learman, County Executive Ball, County Executive Pittman, County Executive Oseski, and our Mayor Scott for sponsoring this critical piece of legislation. As Maryland's largest employer, we understand the critical role our transportation system plays in ensuring our employees get to work, our students get to school, our patients and visitors rely upon to gain access to health care, and our neighbors rely upon to meet their basic needs every day. This legislation is a critical part of sustaining the health and economic livelihood and vitality of our community. Johns Hopkins University of Medicine is happy to support this legislation again this year. Last year, we were one of several private employers that supported the Transit Safety and Investment Act, and we are grateful for this opportunity again. The MTA transit system serves hundreds of thousands of our employees and their families as they rely on MARC, the MTA, commuter bus, and Baltimore Metro transit services to access essential destinations throughout Maryland. This legislation is necessary to ensure that the MTA system can be brought into a state of good repair in the 21st century. And as the state's largest and private employer with more than 53,000 Marylanders in our employ, Johns Hopkins knows that adequate investments in our transportation system are critical to the economic growth of our region. Our employees, students, patients, and visitors desperately depend on it, and the need for people to safely and dependably go to work, school, medical appointments, or wherever they need to go every day is vital. We are proud to be a part of this event, and we look forward to working with Senator McCray and Delegate Learman to ensure its successful passage this year.
Thank you, Alicia. And now we will hear from Mike McMillan from Transit Local 1300. Mike?
Good morning. I come before you today on behalf of all of the frontline employees who are members of ATU Local 1300 for the Maryland Transit Administration. They are the frontline essential workers. They are the ones who are always the first ones to get a whiff from the public as to why transportation system is late. Why is the buses and rails always breaking down? And they are the ones who are taking the heat for it. I come before you to say that the public doesn't know why because of the underfunding or the lack of participation from government to fund the system so that we can have an equitable and adequately working transit system. Today, I applaud Delegate Brooke Learman, Corey McCray, Mayor Brandon Scott, County Executive Calvin Ball, and County Executive Johnny Oshesky, who's always been a supporter of ATU Local 1300 and safety for Baltimore City and Maryland for transportation. For our frontline employees, we also thank you because without you, our voices would not be heard. And they always are stressing the fact of what is needed because once they get the tools and the buses that are needed to help them perform their job successfully, then they will ensure that the public will stay safe and get to where they need to be. We support the Safety Transit Investment Act so that we can expand not only to Baltimore City and make it equitable so that the city can also have opportunity and for affordable jobs in the county as well and vice versa. So once again, we thank you and we support this bill.
Thank you. And we also again want to recognize Aaron Tomaszko from Trade Point Atlantic. And at this time, we will take questions.
We know this is the second time that you have gone through this process, and I know that the bill is scheduled for a hearing in the Senate. Has it been scheduled for a hearing in the House yet? And if so, when do you expect that to happen?
Yep. So it hasn't been scheduled for a hearing in the House yet, but I expect it to come up any day. Yes. So last year the bill passed through the House and stalled in the Senate, and we're very confident this year and hopeful this year that the bill will make it through both chambers.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, everybody.